It's at Genesis in Philadelphia that all the issues of family, the recovery movement, and repressed memories of sexual abuse come together most dramatically.
I've watched you go through an awful lot. I think that you are incredibly strong and capable. I'm glad you're doing it.
Detachment from one's family of origin is an essential part of the Genesis philosophy.
Really?
I haven't seen my parents in 3.5 years. I detached from them after some memories of abuse came up. I didn't think I would ever have to detach from them. Pat had talked about detachment, and I thought, well, I'll be one of the people that doesn't have to. And after the memories of abuse came up, it was my choice. I knew that I needed to get away from them. I knew I was very emotionally hooked to them.
Carol's parents remember the day they received her letter of detachment.
I was so pleased to see that she was in touch with me, but little did I know what was in the letter. She said we were a terminally ill, totally dysfunctional family, and that she didn't want to raise her children the way she was raised. It's like a big, deep hole that's there that nobody can fill until she comes back. And as long as she's with Genesis and they keep telling her what to do, I don't know how, it could go on and on and on.
People say, what's the biggest criticism of your method? And I said, detachment. Detachment is something that's important to separate and individuate from one's parents or some other addictive person that they're involved with. And then they have to deal with something that addicts totally hate, and that's the ability to be alone.
I was given the option by Pat of spending about 5 months alone. And it was absolutely terrifying for me, the thought of it.
Alone without?
Basically without people, without friends, without my husband, without my children. I was so severely addicted to people that it was kind of like an alcoholic having to leave the bar.
And I was absolutely devastated when I heard that, because I know that she's always been a loving, wonderful mother and has spent so much time with the children. And this must be, I can't imagine what it's doing to her that she's not with her children and taking care of them.
I hope that it can work out, that we can all live together again. That's my goal.
You see the children now?
Not yet, but hopefully soon.
How long haven't you seen them?
About 8 months. Yeah, it's been very hard.
It's been 4 years since I've seen them, and I can't imagine what they're thinking, where we are, why we've deserted them. But you know, I don't blame Carol. I don't think she's meant to hurt us. I think that's far from her mind. I think she's just gotten into this, and she's gotten brainwashed, and I think her free will, and everything's been taken away from her. She does everything they tell her to do.
And unfortunately, when the parents don't have really information about what dysfunctional families are about, or even what our therapy is about, or whatever, they of course blame us, and blame us rather than thinking their adult children are making their own decisions.
I detached from my family, did not see them for 5 years, did not communicate with them for 5 years.
Was it helpful?
Absolutely.
If I didn't detach from them, I would always be going to them saying, what should I do now? What decision should I make?
Detached from your mother?
Yes, I did. About 2.5 years ago.
But how did you do it?
I did it by writing her a letter, but that came after several conversations in person, over lunches, trying to tell her that I needed to be doing what I needed to do. I needed to go my way and find out what was wrong with me. And she was very resistant to that fact. I remember at one point I used the term of, I felt that we had a severely dysfunctional family, and she was, if I hear that word one more time, I'm gonna throw up.
But when I pictured, I think of myself as I was on this sort of life raft, you know, out in the middle of a storm, and there's all these things holding it down, you know, and it gets to a point where it's either me or the dysfunction. I'm going to either get swallowed in the disease, which I was, or get out. And it's like I had took out my machete, and I'm cutting the ropes. It's like, I need to take care of me.
I think when you were asking us earlier, what is it that makes us so good? And I think it's detachment. It's something that a lot of therapists have a real hard time doing because they probably haven't separated and individuated from their own loved ones. And so they can't help clients to do it.
I wanted so much for you to come back in my life. And the really beautiful part of it is that's what happened. That you came back and you let me in.
One of the skills is affirmation and encouragement of each other.
And I love the fact that you and I have so much character defects in common. We can really compare defects and enjoy ourselves with it.
I'm real delighted to see how far you've come. You're a real special lady.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you so much. Absolutely.
When you take everybody out of our lives that means something to us, we're children. So Pat and Pat come in as our parents.
Are you happy now?
Very content. I feel like I have a full range of emotions now that I never had before. I used to be just like this.
Carol Diamond thought her problems were over when she read about a cutting-edge marriage counselor in the local paper.
I just didn't know enough about therapy. I was naive.
Instead of fixing her marriage, Carol's psychologist Pat Mansman came up with a startling diagnosis: repressed memories.
They had me convinced that my parents had raised me in a satanic cult, that my father had sexually abused me.
Carol says Mansman prescribed 2 controversial treatments. One was rage therapy, which included beating pillows while screaming.
And you've done it. You've pulled it out.
The other, detachment therapy. Mansman urged Carol to move out of her home, away from family.
You ended up losing your family over this.
I did. I lost, my children haven't spoken to me in 10 years.
After nearly a year with a different therapist, Carol found out her memories of abuse were implanted by Mansman. So she sued, as have other former patients. And even though Mansman surrendered her license to avoid prosecution, her office, Genesis Associates, remains open, posting ads for her psychotherapy services.
Can you stop for a moment?
Mansman wouldn't explain to us what she's doing.